this is the code I wrote for you. I pretty much shortened the circle class. So we have our circle. I just left in the radius. I'm using private. Why am I using private? It's actually better to leave instance variables as private, and that's because you don't want people in their test code, in their code or their mains that are calling the circle, to be able to go and access the radius however they want. Perhaps you don't want it to be a negative number because that's impossible, and you want to have your method checking for that. And basically, you only want people to access the behaviors, and you don't want them to actually access the variables itself. They should only be able to have the behaviors, and you can control variables. So here I made it private. But then if I do want someone to be able to access it, to set it, or get it, then you need the sets and get. And that's why this is also something very common. So here I have the only variable I'm going to have right now is radius. I have a constructor which does nothing. Then I have another constructor, and I said double radius. Here I'm using the this. I did this dot radius equals radius. Now that we know we can use this, I don't have to say new radius, radius equals new radius. So I'm going to say this dot radius equals radius. This object, the object that you just created, that variable radius is going to get assigned the new value. Because I made this private, I need a get and a set. So it's very common that every variable you have here, radius, if you had other things here, you'd have get and set for them. If so here I'd have a get. Get, all it does is return radius. That because it's private, no one can actually access the variable, but this allows them to access the method. I have the same thing for set. Public void is void. It doesn't return anything. It just takes in the radius, and then I have to use this. Because I called it radius, I'm going to say this dot radius equals radius. So we're setting the radius of that object. If I had more variables, I can do the same. Let's say, what would other variables be of a circle? Um, I, all right, let's say there was some other variable. Then I can have a get that variable and a set that variable. And you'll have that in your homework, in your work. You'll be doing more than just one. So here I have a get and a set for each of them. I only have one now in this case, radius. I did also put in the method get area because that is a very, very useful behavior for a circle. So I have public double get area, radius times pi. Now, in the case of my set, but I was lazy, I really should have had, if the radius is negative, return, if it's negative, then this dot radius equals 0. Or I should have had some cases. And that's why it's nice. You can't have a person can't go and say radius equals -1. All they could do is set radius and pass in -1, but you can control it in your method. You can make sure that it doesn't allow -1. It sets it to some other value otherwise. So it does give you more control by making this private, and it's called encapsulation. Now let's go to our test case. So here all I did was I circle my circle equals new circle. 5, I set the radius to be 5. And then I want to print out the radius and area. Of course, I have to use get radius because it's private. I can't access that. I want to try my set radius to 4. And then I want to do a print line to print out the new radius, which should now be 4, and the area. And if I run it, you'll see on the bottom of my screen, it works. One thing I want to show you is now, because it's private, I shouldn't be able to do my circle dot radius equals 4. I should get a compiler error, which I did because it's private. So it does give the programmer, the person who's designing the classes, much more control rather than allowing the person to have the control. This way we give them the methods, the mutators, the accessor, which is to get and a set that we want them to have, and we don't allow them to be able to just play with our variables.